I tell people all the time, I never ever do a show for people. I do a show with people.
He wrote 4,000 songs, led Motown as vice president at just 21, and shaped American music with hits like My Girl. Smokey Robinson was once the king of soul, living a life of pure magic. But today, at nearly 90, everything's different. After COVID almost killed him at 80, he retreated from the world. For a man who once commanded stages and inspired millions, his quiet, isolated life now is a sad reminder of how far the mighty can fall. Smokey Robinson was born on February 19, 1940, in Detroit, Michigan. His full name was William Smokey Robinson, Jr. He grew up in a poor neighborhood in Detroit's North End. Life wasn't easy for him. When he was only 6 years old, his mother died from a brain hemorrhage. After that, his older sister Geraldine and her husband took care of him. Losing his mom at such a young age had a deep effect on him and later shaped the emotions in his music. The nickname Smokey didn't come from his smooth voice like people might think. It came from his Uncle Claude, who called him Smokey Joe because Smokey loved cowboy movies. When he turned 12, the Joe was dropped and he became just Smokey. Smokey lived in a neighborhood full of future stars. He grew up near Aretha Franklin and Diana Ross, who would also go on to become famous. As a kid, Smokey loved reading Hit Parader magazine, where he studied song lyrics. He didn't just like music, he wanted to understand it. At one point, Smokey almost went into a completely different career. In 1959, he started studying electrical engineering at Wayne State University. But after 2 months, he decided to leave school and focus on music. He also had other talents. In high school, he was a great athlete and thought about becoming a baseball player before music became his biggest passion. In 1955, when he was 15, Smokey started a group with his friends from Detroit's Northern High School. They called themselves the Five Chimes. Smokey's close friend Warren Pete Moore, along with Clarence Dawson, Donald Wicker, and James Grice, were the first members. Their first performance was at a house party, where they sang doo-wop songs without instruments. They made just $3 for the night and split it between them. The group started changing. Clarence Dawson left in 1956, and Bobby Rogers joined. Bobby's sister Claudette, who was Smokey's girlfriend, also started singing with them. In 1957, they renamed themselves the Matadors and got their first big chance. They auditioned for a record label called Brunswick Records, but didn't get signed. Something amazing happened, though. Berry Gordy, a songwriter who was there at the audition, noticed Smokey. Gordy wasn't impressed by their singing, but he saw Smokey's notebook filled with over 100 songs. He knew Smokey had talent. Gordy started working closely with Smokey, teaching him how to write and produce songs. Smokey often stayed at Gordy's house to work late, and Gordy's sister Gwen encouraged him and helped keep him going. In 1959, Gordy started his own record label, Tamla Records, with $800 he borrowed from his family. Smokey's group was one of the first acts he signed. They changed their name to The Miracles after Claudette pointed out that Matadors didn't make sense with a female member. Their first single, Got a Job, was released that same year. It was a playful response to the popular song Get a Job, but it didn't make them rich. Smokey earned just $3.19 in royalties for it. Everything changed with their song Shop Around in 1960. At first, they recorded it as a slow ballad. Then, late one night, Berry Gordy woke Smokey up and insisted they record a faster version. That new version became a huge hit. It was released nationally and became Motown's first million-selling song. It hit #1 on the R&B chart and #2 on the pop chart. The success of Shop Around didn't just help the Miracles, it helped Motown become a serious player in the music business. It was a massive success, earning over $1 million in 1960, which allowed Gordy to expand Motown, sign new artists, and improve their studio facilities. Shop Around also made history by crossing racial barriers. appealing to both black and white audiences. The Miracles became the first Motown act to appear on American Bandstand, giving them national exposure. The song earned a place in the Grammy Hall of Fame in 2006 and was named one of the 500 songs that shaped rock and roll by the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Smokey Robinson had a special talent for writing songs that everyone loved. In 1962, he wrote, "You've Really Got a Hold on Me" in just 30 minutes while sitting on a tour bus. He got the idea from a song he liked called "Bring It On Home to Me" by Sam Cooke. When the song first came out, it was supposed to be on the B-side of another song, "Happy Landing," but people loved it so much that Motown decided to make it the main song instead. It became a huge hit, reaching number 8 on the Billboard Hot 100. Even the Beatles loved it so much, they covered it on their 1963 album, With the Beatles. In 1965, Smokey wrote another big hit, "The Tracks of My Tears." This time, it took him 6 months to finish, because he wanted it to be perfect. The idea came to him while he was shaving one day and imagined tear marks running down his face. He used that image to write the song. Smokey was very picky during recording and made his group redo the first verse 43 times until it felt just right. When the song was released, it became a big success, reaching number 2 on the R&B chart and number 16 on the Billboard Hot 100. Over the years, more than 50 artists have covered it, and in 2007, it was added to the Grammy Hall of Fame. Smokey didn't just write for his own group, The Miracles, he also wrote for other Motown artists. One of his most famous songs, "My Girl," was written for The Temptations. He wrote it in just one night in 1964, while they were all performing at the Apollo Theater. Smokey loved David Ruffin's voice, so he wrote the song especially for him. When they recorded it, everything came together perfectly. It only took 2 takes to get it right, and the song became The Temptations' first #1 hit in 1965. My Girl is now one of the most famous songs of all time and has been covered over 1,000 times. Another fun song Smokey wrote for The Temptations was "The Way You Do the Things You Do." He and his friend Bobby Rogers came up with the idea during a long car ride. They started joking around with silly lines like, "You got a smile so bright, you know you could have been a candle." They turned those jokes into a song, and it became The Temptations' first big hit, reaching number 11 on the charts. In 1961, when Smokey was just 21, he became vice president of Motown Records. This was a big deal because it made him one of the youngest and first African Americans to hold such an important position. He didn't just write songs, he helped other artists become stars too. He started a program called Finishing School to teach Motown artists how to perform on stage, act in interviews, and even improve their manners. He helped guide stars like Stevie Wonder and the Jackson 5. Smokey also discovered the Marvelettes at a talent show and helped them launch their career. Smokey's business sense was just as sharp as his songwriting. He pushed for Motown to keep publishing rights to its songs, which made the company a lot of money. Under his leadership, Motown's publishing arm, Jobete Music, became one of the most valuable catalogs in music. By 1966, the company was making $20 million a year, thanks in part to Smokey's influence. He also introduced a profit-sharing system for songwriters and producers in 1968, something that was unheard of at the time. Smokey stayed with Motown as VP until 1988, helping the label dominate the music scene for decades. Smokey Robinson made a big decision in 1972. On July 16th, at a concert in Washington, D.C., he performed his last show with The Miracles. This surprised everyone because the group was at its peak. Their song, "The Tears of a Clown," had been a huge #1 hit just 2 years earlier. But Smokey had a deeply personal reason to leave. His wife, Claudette, had gone through 7 miscarriages because of the stress of touring. Smokey wanted to focus on being with his family and raising their kids. He was only 32, but felt it was the right time to step away from the group he had led for 17 years. In 1973, he released his first solo album called Smokey. The album included a beautiful song, Sweet Harmony, which was a tribute to the Miracles. It showed how much they meant to him, and the song became a hit on the R&B charts. Smokey also experimented with deeper themes, like in the song Just My Soul Responding. But even with some success, it was tough for Smokey to stand out on his own. The music industry was changing fast, and competition was fierce. Things turned around in 1979 when Smokey released Cruisin'. At first, the song wasn't even supposed to be a big deal. It was meant to be a B-side. But Smokey had a cold while recording it, and his raspy voice gave the song a special vibe. It turned out to be magic. Cruisin' became a huge hit, reaching the top of the charts and becoming one of Smokey's most famous songs. People loved its smooth, romantic sound, and it became a classic. In 1981, Smokey followed up with another big hit, Being With You. This song showed that Smokey could still write timeless love songs. It became even more successful than Cruisin', hitting #1 in the UK and climbing the charts in the US too. The album Being With You stayed on the charts for 40 weeks and went gold. Smokey had proven that he wasn't just a part of the Miracles, he was a star on his own. But the path to this success wasn't easy. In the mid-1970s, Smokey struggled to find his place. Albums like Pure Smokey didn't do well, and he had to juggle his music with his responsibilities at Motown. This made it hard for his work to get the attention it deserved. Smokey's comeback in the late 1980s showed his strength. In 1987, he released the album One Heartbeat. It included the hit Just to See Her, which earned him his first Grammy Award. Another hit, the album's title track, also did well, introducing Smokey to younger fans through music videos on MTV. By this time, even other artists were celebrating him. The British group ABC released a song called When Smokey Sings, which became a hit and showed how much his music inspired others. In 2004, he surprised everyone with a gospel album, Food for the Spirit, reflecting his renewed faith. Later, he collaborated with modern stars like John Legend and Elton John on Smokey and Friends in 2014. Over the years, he received major awards, including the Kennedy Center Honor and the Gershwin Prize. Smokey Robinson's journey is a story of resilience, creativity, and love for music that has touched generations. Smokey Robinson married Claudette Rogers in 1959, when he was just 19 years old. They both loved music and were part of the Miracles. At first, their marriage seemed strong, but life as a musician wasn't easy. Fame and constant touring caused problems between them. Claudette also went through something heartbreaking. She had 7 miscarriages between 1960 and 1968. It was a painful time for them. To have a family, they decided to try surrogacy. In 1968, their son, Barry William Borup Robinson, was born. His name honored Motown founder Berry Gordy and Smokey's bandmates. In 1971, they had a daughter, Tamla Claudette. This was only possible because doctors helped Claudette with a special brace to carry the pregnancy. Even though they loved their children, their marriage struggled. In 1974, Claudette found out Smokey was cheating on her. They separated for a short time but got back together. However, the trust was broken. Smokey later admitted he had an affair with Diana Ross during their marriage. In 1984, the final blow came when Smokey had a child with another woman. This ended their marriage, and they divorced in 1986 after 27 years together. The divorce was expensive for Smokey. Claudette got $275,000 every year for 10 years and several properties. Many of Smokey's famous love songs, like My Girl, were inspired by Claudette. Even though their love ended badly, those songs became reminders of their story. In the 1980s, Smokey faced another battle: cocaine addiction. This shocked many people because he had always seemed clean and responsible. He didn't drink much and rarely used drugs before, but in 1983, when he was 43, he started using cocaine. It quickly took over his life. Smokey lost a lot of weight, dropping to just 120 pounds, even though he was 5 feet 11 inches tall. He had to use safety pins to keep his pants up and wore big shirts to hide how skinny he was. He stayed away from his family and friends, surrounding himself with people who didn't stop him. His addiction lasted for 2.5 years, and he spent over $1 million on drugs. One day, his close friend Leon Kennedy stepped in. Leon told Smokey he looked terrible and needed help. This moment pushed Smokey to seek change. In May 1986, Smokey walked into a small church in Los Angeles. The pastor told him she had been waiting for him because God had told her he would come. She prayed for him and talked about things only he knew: his struggles, his pain, and his addiction. Smokey said he walked into that church an addict and left completely free. He never used drugs again. This experience changed his life. He began speaking about addiction to help others, sharing his story in prisons, churches, and rehab centers. He also returned to music stronger than ever. His 1987 album, One Heartbeat, won him his first Grammy as a solo artist. In 2002, Smokey started a new chapter. He married Frances Gladney, a woman he had known for over 30 years. They didn't start dating until they realized they both loved coconut shrimp during a birthday dinner. They share the same birthday, February 19th, which they celebrate together every year. Frances is an interior designer and redesigned their home to reflect both their styles. The couple also started businesses together. In 2016, they launched a skincare line called Skin Phonic for people of color. Later, in 2018, they started Smokey Robinson Wines to share their love of fine wines. Their marriage is full of support and teamwork, showing how Smokey's life turned around after years of hardship. In December 2020, Smokey Robinson, the Motown legend, got COVID-19 at the age of 80. It hit him so hard that he had to be rushed to a hospital in Los Angeles on December 12th. For 11 days, he fought for his life. The virus attacked his lungs badly, and for about 4 or 5 days, he couldn't even remember what was happening. His oxygen levels dropped really low, down to 85%, which is far from the healthy range of 95 to 100%. He could barely breathe, let alone speak or sing. The whole experience was terrifying for him. Smokey called it one of the most frightening battles of his life. He remembers the constant sound of hospital machines, the cold, sterile smell, and the doctors and nurses in full protective gear. It was lonely, too. No family could visit because of strict COVID rules. The only way he could talk to his wife, Frances, was through short video or phone calls. It was a tough, emotional time that showed him just how close he came to losing everything. In February 2022, Smokey stirred up a big controversy during an interview on The View. He said he didn't like being called African American and preferred Black American. Smokey, who grew up in Detroit during the Civil Rights era, said he had never been to Africa and didn't feel connected to the term African American. He believed it ignored the incredible contributions Black people had made to the U.S. He said, "I consider myself to be a Black American, and I like being called Black." This wasn't the first time he talked about this idea. Back in 2003, he performed a poem called A Black American on Def Poetry Jam. In it, he explained how terms like Black became a source of pride in the 1960s, with people saying, "Black is beautiful," as a way to fight racism and celebrate their identity. After his comments, social media exploded. Some people were angry and thought Smokey's views were outdated or disrespectful. On Twitter, people criticized him for ignoring the connection between Black Americans and their African roots. One user said, "Black is a race, and African American is an ethnicity. Smokey doesn't get it." Another joked that Smokey's opinion didn't make sense because he had never even been to Africa. But not everyone disagreed. Some people supported him, saying they also liked being called Black American instead of African American. One supporter wrote, "I understand Smokey. I feel the same way." Smokey defended his opinion. He said it came from his deep pride in what Black Americans have done for the U.S. He talked about the sacrifices Black soldiers made in wars, saying, "They didn't fight and die for Timbuktu or Kenya. They fought for Louisiana, Mississippi, and Texas." Smokey's words showed how much he admired the history and strength of Black Americans. Smokey Robinson amazed everyone in 2023 when he released a new album called Gasms. He was 83 years old, but he proved that age doesn't stop creativity. This was his first album of completely new songs since 2009. The title surprised people because it sounded bold and playful. Smokey said he chose the name to make people curious and get them to listen. The album had 9 songs, including If We Don't Have Each Other, which came out earlier in January. Some of these songs had been in the works for years, with a few dating back 20 years. This showed how much time and effort Smokey puts into his music. Critics were a bit divided. Some gave it good reviews, like Pitchfork with 7.2 out of 10, while others were less impressed. But fans still loved hearing his voice, which was as smooth as ever. Smokey even added some fun and daring songs to the album, showing he still liked to push boundaries. Smokey's career is full of incredible honors. He is in both the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the Songwriters Hall of Fame, but his Rock Hall induction caused a big stir. In 1987, he was inducted as a solo artist, but his group, The Miracles, was left out. People were upset because The Miracles were so important to his success and Motown's history. After 25 years, the mistake was finally fixed in 2012, when The Miracles were also inducted. This made Smokey one of the rare people to be honored twice. His songwriting career is even more amazing. Smokey wrote over 4,000 songs, including hits for The Temptations, Marvin Gaye, and Mary Wells. His song, My Girl for The Temptations, became a classic and has been covered more than 1,000 times. Smokey's talent as a singer, writer, and performer has earned him a special place in music history. He's the only artist to be in the Rock Hall, Songwriters Hall, and also be named a living legend by the Recording Academy. Smokey has also won awards outside of music. In 1997, he got the National Medal of Arts, which is the highest honor for artists in the U.S. It's usually given to people like classical musicians or painters, but Smokey's influence was so big that he received it too. One surprising thing about his career is that he didn't win his first Grammy until 1988, almost 30 years after his first hit with The Miracles. He won for the song Just to See Her. In 2006, Smokey was honored at the Kennedy Center, joining other legends like Stevie Wonder and Diana Ross. This award showed that he wasn't just a pop star, but a true cultural icon. Smokey is also one of the few people to have 2 stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. He got one as a solo artist in 1983 and another with The Miracles in 2009. This shows how his music has stayed important for decades. Smokey Robinson's commitment to health and fitness is nothing short of extraordinary, and it has been a part of his life for decades. For over 45 years, Smokey has practiced yoga daily, starting in 1979. This isn't a casual practice. He often dedicates up to 2 hours a day to it. In 2020, Smokey shared how his yoga routine has grown to include advanced techniques like breathing exercises and meditation. This dedication keeps him flexible and strong, even in his 80s. On his 80th birthday, during a concert in Las Vegas, he amazed the audience by holding a headstand for a full minute, while singing The Tracks of My Tears. His incredible yoga skills allow him to perform with the energy of someone half his age. Smokey's journey with yoga began by chance in 1978, during a tough touring schedule when he couldn't sleep. A fellow musician introduced him to transcendental meditation, which led him to try yoga. At first, he wasn't sure about it, but after just 3 months, his back pain from years of performing vanished. From that moment, yoga became essential to his life. Smokey even combines his love of music with yoga by practicing to a playlist of soul and R&B songs, which he says helps with his rhythm and focus. In 2022, he took this idea further by releasing an album called Namaste Moves, featuring instrumental versions of his hits designed for yoga sessions. In addition to yoga, Smokey has followed a strict workout routine for most of his life. At 84 years old, he begins every day at 4:30 a.m. with a 90-minute workout. This includes 30 minutes of cardio, like running on a treadmill or cycling, followed by 45 minutes of strength training and 15 minutes of stretching. On Sundays, he goes for a 5-mile outdoor run, a habit he started in 1975 and has never stopped. Smokey's disciplined approach extends to his diet, which has been consistent for more than 50 years. On January 1st, 1972, he stopped eating red meat entirely. This decision was inspired by a vivid nightmare he had the night before, after a big steak dinner. In the dream, he saw the negative effects of meat consumption on both health and the environment. The experience shook him so deeply that he vowed never to eat beef, pork, or lamb again, and he has kept that promise ever since. His diet is simple and mostly plant-based, with occasional fish and chicken. He starts each day with a green smoothie made of kale, spinach, banana, and plant-based protein powder. For lunch, he usually has a salad with mixed greens, avocado, and grilled tofu or fish. Dinner often includes steamed vegetables with quinoa or brown rice. Smokey also uses a unique method for portion control called the Smokey Stack. He imagines his plate as a vinyl record and only fills it up to the label area, about 1/3 of the plate. This trick has helped him maintain a healthy weight for decades. In 2020, Smokey tried a fully vegan diet for 6 months. He noticed higher energy levels and improved vocal performance during that time. However, after consulting with his doctor, he added small amounts of fish and chicken back into his meals to support his intense workouts with extra protein. Smokey's lifelong dedication to health, from yoga to fitness to diet, is an inspiring example of how discipline and passion can lead to extraordinary results.